What's up, everybody? How are we doing? My name is Palodin, and thank you for stopping into another video of this series, Palodin Projects. This is a series where we go over all of the different champion concepts that I've created for a video game known as League of Legends, if you guys don't know. The first video, which was a champion known as Yone, did very well. I was very proud of that, so I figured I'd keep rolling on and giving you guys another idea here. This champion is actually the very first champion that I came up with the entire concept for. So Yone was, I created obviously his abilities, his lore, kind of what he would do, his attitude and everything. But the name, Yone was already in Yasuo, who is his brother, if you did not know. He's already in his lore that Riot created when they created like Yasuo already. So his idea of a champion was already in the game, just no one had, he was actually a champion yet, so everyone's just kind of speculating. So this champion, I actually created everything from scratch, his lore, his abilities, everything. And we're going to go through and do his, go through the lore first, and then we'll go into all of his abilities. This champion's name is Kai, and he is known as the Ethorian Mystic. So he, to give you a little bit of background before we go into the story, he is a very, very interesting character, I would say. He has a very unique purpose. You guys probably could see in the title. He is a champion that has actually 16 abilities, but I won't spoil anything for you guys yet, so we'll hop into the lore first off. So Kai, the Ethorian Mystic. The wind untangled itself from his body. And like I said, but before I'll stop here before I go into this. I'm only giving you guys a smidgen, a very small portion of what his lore actually is. So if you guys actually want to see read his entire lore from start to finish, let me know. If this video hits 300 likes, I put 500 likes on the other one. It's probably a little too high for a first video, so I'd say 300 likes, or actually we'll do 100 likes. If this video hits 100 likes, or whenever this video hits 100 likes, I will post an extended lore for Kai, and then you guys will know his entire storyline. I just wouldn't have enough time to do it. This video would be over an hour long. And it's already long as it is, probably between 30 or 40 minutes. So making it an hour, I just want to cut it out. I can just make another video about that. All right, so we'll go into the lore here. The wind untangled from his body, withering from the force of the storm. As the wind subsided, Kai felt himself gaining control again. The ability to move without being thrown side to side has stopped. When the aura receded from his surroundings, the vast desert Kai journeyed through with his caravan was gone. Opposite of that, what lied in front of him, around him, were dark and tempted walls, shearing with nothing warming and lifelike, just cold. So already this story's already started with him being in a very bad area. He's actually in the Shurima Deserts, one of the Shurima Deserts, and he's traveling with the caravan. Kai has background as a merchant. So traveling through the desert, gets stopped in a arcane storm, which is the big storms that happen in the Shurima Desert. Gets caught in the storm, thinks he's gonna die, and then once the storm kind of subsides, he realizes he's actually not in the desert anymore. He's in a weird type of like room with a bunch of walls, and it's really dark, and he doesn't know how he fell into there. Searching his immediate surroundings, Kai realized there was no exit to this dark area. Every wall was solid. Even the ceiling was sealed. It's a tongue twister that I wrote. Erasing any distinct way for him to make his escape. So he's looking around this room. He doesn't find anything. He can't figure out how the hell he got in here. He obviously didn't fall from the ceiling. If the ceiling's actually closed, he didn't stumble into it. He's very confused as to how he ended up in this room. During his search, a room was found to the end of a long random hallway, glittering with a single light in the middle, almost baiting him inside. So he finds a room kind of off to the end in one of the back corners, so he decides to kind of venture into that room, because why the hell not? He doesn't know how the hell he got here anyways. The room seemed to have its own personality, almost as if it lived and breathed like him. The single torch lit up a large box standing below it. An engraved coffin aligned with hieroglyphics shimmered to the eyes of the adventurer. So obviously he's walked into some sort of necropolis, some crypt of somebody. It's not Azir. If people would ask me that in the comments, it's not his ear. Resting in pure solitude, Empress Nathva. So Nathva is she's not an actual. If you read anything about League of Legends, she's not actually in the lore. So don't try to go look up the name and see if you can find anything. I actually made this part up. A feeling came over him, slowly dragging his movements towards the coffin. So he's reading this. He finds out that it is this Empress's coffin, and he's like, "Okay, what the hell? You know, I've never, like, for one, I don't know how the hell I got in here, and two, why is there just a coffin here?" But he kind of gets this feeling he wants to go investigate a little bit more, which is always a bad thing if you guys watch, you know, horror movies. It's never a good idea to trust your instincts and follow something. Before he reached the plateau, a seamed array of light spurred from the coffin. The ground began to shake, crumble even. The walls altered themselves, rotating back and forth, shifting the room's atmosphere into something more celestial. So this room basically began to go on its own acid trip. He's basically, the walls are starting to move around. The ground's crumbling below him. It's like he took way too much of a drug, and it's getting very, very weird looking. And celestial, obviously what that would mean is it starts to look sort of like, you know, you can see stars, like the galaxy, sort of, just very, very trippy. Very, very trippy. Sorry, I have to drink some water. Very, very dehydrated the past few days. Again, Kai was lost in his own existence, not knowing where he was or how he arrived there. The current surroundings have vanished, floating off into the distance. So basically, the ground, the floor, the ceiling, everything just kind of like broke apart and floated away. He's like, "Oh, okay, that's fucking normal." All that stood soundly was Kai and this coffin. However, something else glimmered in front of Kai, appearing as a ball of light in the tri-colored atmosphere. So he's got this coffin in front of him, got him, and there's a little ball of light that's kind of just sitting in front of him. A sphere seemed to have exited the coffin, hovering around eye level. The sphere was magically beautiful, but Kai was unsure. He tried to step away, but something thwarted his movements, almost freezing him in place. Don't you hate when that happens? Like when you have those dreams when something scary happens and you try to run away and your body feels like it's made of cement and you can't move. That's kind of what he's going through here. The orb slowly floated towards the paralyzed man, seeping what seemed to be a very eerie mist lurking towards him. Kai fought, uprooting every muscle in his body, trying everything he could to free himself from this invisible strangle. The mist struggled around his body, clearing through his eyes, ears. Kai began to hear voices, see places he could never dream of visiting. As he fainted, the voices continued to whisper into his mind, "You are the mystic, Kai. Wield the great elements. Serve the Ethorians." So, like I said, this is just a portion of what his entire lore is. If you guys want to know more about it, obviously you don't know who the Ethorians are. You don't know who this Empress is. You probably want to know more about Kai. 100 likes, I will post an extended lore of everything about this champion, and you guys will get a lot more information here. So, the concept of this champion, I wanted to make a very complex champion. If you guys have already seen my own video, you know he's very, 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 very complicated. But I wanted to do something, like I said, making my own champion, making my own idea of a champion. I wanted to make something completely over the top. So one of the big concepts I wanted to go for was the melee mage concept, which there's not a lot of mages who are in melee range champion, without them going more towards the assassin type of attitude. You know, you have Diana and Cassidon, which would be probably the only two. Echo may be following that too. Fizz is an assassin. So Katarina's an assassin. So there's not a lot of those champions, and I wanted to make someone who fit that role where he's a caster mage, but his auto attacks are melee. And it sounds a little weird that you would want to do something like that, but I promise it'll make sense once we get into his abilities. He has a Sharimic heritage. He's a male, and I wanted to do something a little different. Most champions are made, you know, very youthful, or they're like ancient type of old, like Sejuani, like Zillion, Renekton, Nasus, where they're ancient old, but you can't really, they don't look, you know, super old. We don't have any old, mature human type of champions in the game besides Gangplank. I think Darius is a little bit older, Swain, and Braum, yeah, I think that's it. Trundamere maybe, but so a very small amount of champions kind of fit that idea. I wanted to make an actual, like a Reinhardt, like you know, Reinhardt is the oldest member of the Overwatch, and I kind of want to make a champion like that, where you could definitely his age, he definitely wears his age on his sleeve. He is an adventurous character. He is actually a merchant. Like I said in the story, he's a merchant who travels around the Shriemak Desert, basically looking for treasure to sell, just kind of drifts from place to place, sort of like a gypsy. Because of this, he's very alone, doesn't have any family, so his attitude kind of represents that. Now, as for his style of a champion, there's a show that I liked when I was younger. My favorite show when I was younger was Dragon Ball Z, but there was another show that I watched a lot, and it was The Last Airbender, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And obviously, the Last Airbender in that story was able to control all 4 elements. And I was thinking to myself, this was around 2016, about the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. This was actually about 4 months before Talia came out. And I came up with this concept and saying, okay, what if I made a champion who could use all four elements? And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, well, he'd be too much like Udyr, because Udyr basically has 4 complete different abilities, different stances. But I don't want to copy that idea, so what can I do? So I came up with this idea that I have. We'll get to it in just a second. He's not a few other things about him. He's not the fighting type. He's actually a very passive person. Through his life, he's always been a very passive person until this happens to him. The orb is called the Ethorian Orb, or the Ethorian Spear. It's an ancient weapon. Actually, it's an ancient artifact that houses a very, very strong power that we'll get to in a minute. But his relationship with this weapon is very different. A lot of the characters in League of Legends who have adopted some sort of forbidden weapon that controls this incredible amount of power, what happens is normally the weapon takes over and they become part of that weapon, sort of like Kayn, Varus, where with the darkened weapons, they actually take over the body and they become that entity. Or they become so obsessed with power that it eventually controls them. So basically every humanoid character who has entered the void basically has that sort of idea. His relationship with the sphere is very different. His relationship, he's not actually controlled by its power. He actually works side by side with it. Very similar to, if you've ever seen the show Yu-Gi-Oh! It's going back a little bit, but the main character in there, when he uses the what's it called, some sort of pyramid that he wears around his neck, when he transforms into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Yugi, he can still kind of, it's not like he's like, oh my gosh, I'm a completely different person. I mean, he kind of is a completely different person, but he still has the same characteristics in a sense, so it's not like he's being possessed or anything else like that. Here are some stats for Kai. If you guys actually go and look at these stats, they're very close to, they're actually a little bit lower than a lot of Mage stats. I made his stats predominantly lower because his early game's not supposed to be very good. Like I said, melee cast Mage. He is a caster Mage who is a melee auto attack. Various play styles, which we'll get into. One big thing about his kit, all of his kits, is he doesn't have any sort of escape. He is very grounded champion, which I think kind of will balance him out for the fact that he has 4 different kits. He has 16 abilities. You would say that's fucking crazy. Why would you give a champion 16 abilities? You can't even use 16 abilities. The whole idea of this champion is you have one champion who has 4 different playstyles. So his passive here is called Foreseer of the Great Elements. Unlocking the power of the ancient Ethorian Orb, Kai has the ability to control one of the 4 great elements in battle. Kai will pick an elemental form at the beginning of each game before being able to move. chailing for 6 seconds, giving him a completely unique kit. Kai can only choose one element. I said on, but can only control one element per game. So basically, at the beginning of the game, you can pick one of these 4 different routes to go, and that's what you will be playing that game. So you can play him 4 games back, 4 games in a row, and can pick a different element all 4 games. You're going to be able to have a completely different play style, completely different abilities. So it's not to the extent where it's like, oh my gosh, you get 16 abilities in game. That's fucking broken. It's actually very. It is done in a very balanced way. And what did I want to make him do? I wanted to make him have an ability to almost counter everything, but also because he doesn't have any mobility, he's very killable. But he has the ability, you can pick him. He would be great for competitive because you can pick him and you can swap him around the different roles. So we have here 4 different elements. Fire, if you guys can't tell, fire is the Great Flame, the Great Bond is earth, the Great Wind is air, and the Great Flood is water. Now, as you can see here, all 4 of these kits have completely different sort of scaling. Now he is a AP champion, so obviously building magic damage, building ability power is going to be the way to play him. You have different forms of his scaling. So obviously the fire here, red Kai, mana scaling. You have a lot of mana scaling in your kit. The Great Earth and the Great Bond has armor scaling. So if you're playing against a Talon, a Yasuo, or you're playing against a very heavy AD comp, you can pick him and then swap out to Earth Kai, and you're going to be a lot more suited to be, in your position. You're not going to feel like you need to build, you're going to build armor items, but you're going to be a lot more durable for going against AD champions. The Great Wind has movement scaling, and the Great Flood has magic resist scaling. So you have 2. You have one that's good against AP and one that's good against AD. Now we're going to go into I believe the fire first, and we're just going to go down the list here. The fire, the Great Flame, the first ability is called Inner Fire. Kai enhances himself with the power of the Great Flame, allowing his auto attacks to have increased range, AoE, and bonus magic damage for X amount of seconds. So compare this to Kale's Righteous Fury, where she is a melee caster, but whenever she uses her E ability, she is able to turn her auto attacks into AoE ranged attacks. That's the idea around this. Now you see this here, bonus effect: killing jungle monsters grants permanent mana. You have 7 mana up to 10, and then large monsters 10 to 13. So that should tell you right off the bat, he has a passive that works against jungle monsters. You can actually play him in the jungle. My idea was to make the Fire Kai a jungle mage. I think is awesome since there's not many jungle mages in the game. So this is it. This is your first ability here. Second ability. Second and third ability. His W is called Scorched. Cast an AoE trap at a target location, damaging enemies that walk through, lowering HP regen by 15%. Also can be casted on brush, setting the brush on fire for X amount of seconds, having the same effect, granting true sight for 5 seconds. So, Scorch, you can throw this down, it'll do a bunch of damage to AoE, very, very good at clearing jungle camps, clearing waves, but also you can throw this on brush, which is a completely new effect to anything that's in League of Legends. You can catch a brush on fire. So if you guys know the Doom bots, when you guys play and you have the giant evil Teemo that pops up, all the brushes are on fire, if you guys seen that. And I kind of took that idea. I'm like, this would be really cool to have this as an ability for a champion. So if you're invading somebody's jungle, or if you don't want to get invaded, or you want to be able to kind of put up some sort of defense, you can catch one of the brushes on fire while you're doing another camp, and anybody who walks in there is going to take damage. And 15% I think is higher than Grievous Wounds HP regen effect. I think theirs is 12. So it's going to lower their HP significantly and also grant true sight on the brush as well. The E is Molten Core. Target selected becomes engulfed internally with molten lava. After a brief moment, the target will erupt, taking huge magic damage, also dealing damage to nearby enemies. So, very similar to the explosive charge ability that Tristana has, except you're not auto-attacking afterwards. It's basically you cast it on somebody, it kind of ticks, and then blows up. Large monsters will dissolve completely from the flames under 60%. So if you throw this on a large chicken, if you throw this on on a large golem. You throw this on Gromp. If they're under 60% and the molten core explodes, it actually will completely dissolve the champion, completely kill them. So it's a very fast way of clearing the jungle. This effect also will restore X amount of mana used in spellcasting. So I didn't make any mana cost for any of these skills just because it's something that's going to be more towards you need a balance. But whenever he casts this ability, if he kills a monster with that effect, it will grant some mana back to him, so keeps him healthy in the jungle. Now the fun part is his ultimate. His ultimate is called Meteor Shower. Cast range 1100. It's very, very long. This is a target location. Unleashes a giant, powerful meteor storm lasting for X amount of seconds, dealing damage to all enemies involved. So, like, think of it as a giant make it rain, like Misfortune's E, make it rain. It's like a giant version of that. You can actually reactivate to cancel the AoE, but you will launch a giant meteor as a skill shot towards a target direction, dealing damage, and also a percent of total mana from your mana pool. So you actually will deal more damage the more mana you have in your kit. Sort of a little bit like Rise, a little bit. So you can actually use this as a very high damage ability. You can farm, get a bunch of mana, even build mana items, and when you can launch this at somebody, you can probably be 100 to 0 somebody with using that skill shot, if they don't have a lot of magic resist. So, like I said, the idea behind Red Kai or Fire Kai is to have a mage jungler. He has very strong clearing mechanics, which makes him have one of the healthiest clears as a mage in the game, probably the highest clear, better than Fiddlesticks in my opinion. He has the very unique ability to change enemies ganking and jungle roots by using Scorched. By catching a brush on fire, you can change where a champion is going to gank. If a champion likes to sit in a tri-bush and try to, like Kane, try to jump over the wall or do something else like that, they have to change their path or else they're going to take a bunch of damage and may be able to be seen by the enemy team, completely thwarting their ability for a gank. This kit has a lot of damage in it, but he's very, very squishy because he has 0 CC and 0 ability to escape. He has no stuns, no roots, no snares, nothing, just damage. No slows, just complete damage. So once you get close to him, you're gonna be able to kill him. You're gonna be able to fuck him up. My advice, probably start Q, since it is your auto attack enhancement long range AoE. It's gonna be very easy to kite around with that. Going into Scorched and then Molten Core, probably the best sort of skill maxing. And then a full build for him: Runic Echoes, cooldown boots, Hextech, Proto Belt, Hourglass Leandries, add a death cap in there as well. I think it's a pretty standard build. You can probably change it up a little bit, but getting him as much cooldown as possible, so that way you can keep throwing those spells out. Now we're going to go on to the Great Bond, the Earth Kai. As I said already, he is an anti-AD build. So his first ability is called Iron Fist. Kai enhances himself with the power of the Great Bond. He gains bonus magic damage on auto attacks, granting bonus armor upon landing an auto attack. This will stack up to 6 times. You go from 1.5 armor up to 7.5. This is per level, and like I said, these will all stack 6 times. You'll see his Q for every kit is an auto attack enhancement. They're all just a little bit different, so keep that in mind. So this actually has a passive and an active effect. For the active effect, for X amount of seconds, each auto attack grants a stack of Hardened. Once the effect expires, the amount of auto attacks landed generate a permanent armor shield, which would be called Hardened, can only be granted from auto attacking enemy champions, not minions and monsters, etc. So Hardened is a completely new effect brought to the League of Legends table. Hardened will, in a sense, make a permanent armor shield, sort of like where Galio levels up his W, he gains that magic shield. This is sort of the same thing. When you just auto attack anybody, you have sort of the Jax effect, where when you're auto attacking just with the passive ability, you're gaining armor. It's like you have an armor version of Wit's End on all the time. Every time you auto attack, you'll gain a little bit of armor. Now when you activate it, you'll stop stacking, but every time you auto attack an enemy champion, you will gain you'll gain a stack of hardened. Once those seconds expire, however many stacks of hardened you have will translate into an actual permanent armor shield that will last until it goes away. When you let's say you get a shield about 500 armor, a permanent shield of about 500 armor. If that shield drops to about 200 armor and you go back to base, it will not go back up to 500. It stays where it's at. The only time it will go up is when you actually use the Q effect again. So you can stack a ton of armor against enemy champions if they're not attacking you, of course. But I think this is a good way to make him very durable towards AD assassins. I think it's very, very unique. We'll go into his W here, which is called Rock Wall. I did not take this from Talia. Like I said, I made this concept before Talia came out, and I shouldn't even say that because this is actually a lot different. Kai turns the earth in front of him, conjuring it into a rock-made wall, dispelling any damage from that direction. Also becomes terrain, not movable. So this is a Yasuo sort of wind wall, but he basically pulls up the earth in front of him and turns it into a shield. Now the shield will sit there and it will last, and it will become terrain until it is destroyed. The wall actually has its own hit point system, and the hit points scale off bonus armor that Kai builds. So if Kai has a bonus 300 bonus armor, if Kai gets 300 bonus armor, that wall will have 3,000 HP, which is a lot. But the purpose of it is, like I said, it's so he can block a bunch of damage, trying to save another ally. But you probably won't see the wall ever really go higher than 3,000, I don't think, unless you're building just nothing but armor, which you could do. You can play Tank Kai. I think it would work. Also, the area that Kai conjures now becomes quaked, so keep that in mind for later on abilities. So any ground that he uses his W on will become quaked. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm flying through this. I'm just trying to get through all 4 of the different kits within a good time span for you guys. The E here is called Seismic Quake. You target an area. The target area begins to shake for X amount of seconds, causing that area to be quaked. And also it damages and slows all enemies walking over it. This applies on-hit effects like Crystal Scepter, like Leandri's Torment, like Luden's Echo. It'll proc all on-hit effects like that. Reactivate on quaked. Yeah, so reactivate on quaked terrain to toggle a skill shot, forcing the earth into a upwards formation, pushing the targets into the air, dealing magic damage. So you would basically be able to reactivate it, and you can push that terrain that you shook, that you quaked, into a certain area, throwing them up into the air, dealing magic damage. I think this is a pretty... his only real damage ability. I think it's good. It's good. This kid doesn't have a ton of damage in it. It's more for utility, but I think this could be definitely a good damage ability. And then this is a kind of this is an ability that I had a little bit of trouble trying to make. As you can see here, I have 2 different versions of it. It is called Titanic Tectonics Collide, or Colliding Tectonics. So the first version, both of these are actually long-range skill shots. Kai lifts 2 quaked areas off the ground, colliding them together, kind of like that, dealing magic damage to all enemies as well as knocking them up and to the side of the collision. So they'll be knocked up into the air, and then they fall on either the left or the right side of the collision. The second version of this could be Kai targets an area, colliding the terrain together, dealing magic damage to all enemies, and then both sides of the collision become quaked. I think that one makes more sense, but I wasn't really sure when I found positives and negatives to both of them. You guys, if you guys want to, give me your opinion on which one you think would make more sense. I struggled back and forth for the past few years when I came up with this idea on really which one would go better with this kid, and I can't figure it out, because you have 2 abilities that can cause quaked earth, so it would make sense. It would just make it so you have to use it on quaked earth, and it's not as effective anywhere else in the map. I don't know. You guys give me some ideas, and you can see here the range can go up to 4,500, which is very. I'm trying to think. Talia's wall is, I think, 5,000 at the most, so it's shorter than that, but it's pretty fucking long. Like, it can knock up a lot of people. You can probably snipe people off of Baron, like knock them up in the air. Be a fun ability to see in the game. Earth Kai, probably a top laner or mid laner, and you're gonna pick him into a lot of burst melee matchups like Talon, Zed, Wukong, probably Riven too. You'd be very, very good into Riven. Building armor, you know, you want to build a lot of armor to get the most out of this kit, especially with your rock wall. You have a good team fight presence, but not a lot of kill pressure. Earlier, even really at all, he doesn't have a lot of kill pressure. He doesn't do a lot of damage. He's more so for the knockups and being able to throw his rock wall up and to kind of step back, and also to absorb a lot of damage. As you see here with this build, Roa, Iceborne, Banshees, Hourglass, and Deathcap, probably the best build you're gonna get for him. You may be able to switch around the Banshees and get another, like a Frozen Heart or Randuin's if they don't have a lot of AP. Then go with the Source Shoes. You can even go with, if you change out Banshees, you can go with cooldown boots, try to get 40% cooldown. We'll move into the next one here, which will be Air. Great Wind. Wind Kai's Q is called Sonic's Boom. Kai enhances himself with the power of the Great Wind, empowering his auto attacks with range for X amount of seconds. So this is a very similar to the Fire Q. The only difference is he doesn't have AoE. He just has range. Same sort of range. This one also does have an additional effect. Every time Kai auto attacks an enemy champion, Kai gains bonus movement speed. So this does not have to be when he activates Sonic Boom. This can just be normal, like he walks up to an enemy champion and auto attacks him. He will gain movement speed. He can also gain it when he activates the Q as well. So, like I said, movement speed is the big thing with Wind Kai here. You guys will see this. W is called Static Shocked. Shield a close ally or yourself, and this will scale off of AP. While shielded, taking damage disperses lightning charges around the shielded target, dealing damage to nearby foes. There's a game, very old game called Diablo 2, one of the best games I've ever played. There's a minion in the game, or it's called a Carver, I believe. It's this blue demon-looking thingy, and when you attack it, every time you attack it, it lets off all of these lightning charges around it. It's really fucking annoying. That's kind of the concept I was going for with this. You can shield somebody, give them sort of a Janus shield, but then every time that target takes damage, they're going to light the screen up with lightning charges. And that's going to be very bad for any melee champions who are trying to step in range or try to assassinate that person. It's going to definitely get them to jump away from it. It's kind of like an eel, or one of those type of creatures that live underwater. I don't know. I thought it was really, really cool. His E is called Aerial Gust. This ability is took well, like I said, I came up this ability I actually changed around, I think maybe last year. It was something else, but I kind of took the Aurelian Soul sort of path, where he actually will gain charges as he moves around the map, or the Yasuo passive, I should say. As he moves, once he hits 100%, he will gain an X amount of movement speed. It actually will be like 25, 35, 45%, something really ridiculous where he just moves way faster than he should. But once you hit at least 50%, Kai can activate this ability to roll a gust of wind, of storm wind, from behind him, knocking back all enemies. So it would actually knock. Basically, this is a good kiting tool. If you're getting chased by a Talon or a Fiora or a Riven, somebody with a lot of movement speed, or Rammus, you can actually run away from them, and you can actually activate this. It'll knock all of them back, knocking them out of their abilities and helping you flee. You can see this kid is very focused on running around, being a trickster. You don't have a lot of damage in this kid, so you could probably play him as a support with this kid here. But the really fun part about this champion is his ultimate. His ultimate is called Ion Storm, and this is a global cast. Yes, it is a global cast. Shook my screen there a little bit. Kai develops a large Ion Storm over Summoner's Rift. This will also dim the lights a little bit on Summoner's Rift, similar to Nocturne's ult, in a way. Each enemy champion will have 6 lightning bolts casted in their general area, falling at random, dealing massive damage. Each one of these lightning bolts will take about 3 seconds to charge. They'll look very similar to Kog'Maw ult, where it shows that little symbol on the ground, so you kind of know where it's going to fall. If a champion is hit by a bolt, however, the next lightning bolt will increase in radius and have an additional bonus damage. So as you see here at the top, lightning bolt has about 150 pixel radius, and every time it hits, it will go up 50 points. And this can stack up to 5 times, which means if you get hit by all 6, that lightning bolt becomes humongous. Imagine being in a team fight and you casting this ability. The entire team fight has to end, because if 5 people are standing in a circle, all 5 of those first lightning bolts are all going to land in the same spot. If someone gets hit by someone else's lightning bolt and their lightning bolt, that counts as 2 stacks. So you're gonna do a shit ton of damage. The power of this kit is definitely in the ultimate. You're just kind of a trickster running around not doing anything, and this is where your damage is gonna fall. Very good at stopping team fights, and like I said, it's a global Karthus, same sort of ultimate where it just does a bunch of damage to everybody. That's why it has the very, very high cooldown. I didn't want to make it, super broken. This was kind of one of the more fun kits that I actually had to make. It's because I wanted to make it so it didn't have a lot of damage. I wanted to just make it very unique, and a sense where it bases a lot of its movement. It's a lot of its ability off movement. Now for the last kit here, actually we'll go into this here. Like I said before, this can be played as a mid laner or a support, kind of a damage support if you wanted to. Lacks a lot of damage, but you have more outplay potential. You have your knockup, you have your shield. You can gain movement speed with your Q, and you can also build, I didn't add it in here, but you can add Rylai's to help kind of slow with your Q, which make it really, really awesome. And your ultimate really does make or break a team fight, because if a team fight breaks out, you can ult, and the entire team will have to scatter, and you guys can go and pick them off. 2 different starting builds here. You have your Ring and Frost, and your Frost Queen's Claim build start here. See here, movement speed. Obviously, you're gonna want to build some movement speed items. You can probably build something else, maybe like Moby Boots or Swifties, just to get some more movement speed. Having a lot of movement speed on this kit definitely get the most out of it. Now, for the last kit here, this is called the Great Flood, which is the Water Kai. He is the anti-AP build or kit. Ooh, it's a lot. All right, so his Q, this 4th Q, is called Liquid Strikes. Kai enhances himself with the power of the Great Flood, gaining bonus magic damage on auto attacks for X amount of seconds, granting bonus magic resist upon landing auto attacks, stacked 6 times. Same thing as Iron Fists from the Earth kit. Effect, very similar. Each auto attack grants a stack of Scaled. Once the effect expires, the amount of auto attacks generate a permanent magic shield. Scaled can only be granted from auto attacking enemy champions, not minions, monsters, etc. So, like I said, same exact thing as Iron Fist, but you're taking out armor and you're adding in magic resist. So you have an ability to play against any sort of comp with this champion. You just have to pick the right one at the beginning of the game. His W, it's called Oceanic Depth Sphere. This is a skill shot which has unlimited range. Let me tell you why. Kai conjures a slow-moving bubble of magic water, launching at target location. Once the bubble comes in contact with a target or terrain, the bubble explodes, dealing magic AoE damage. So this can travel. You can shoot this from mid lane to from your turret to the enemy turret, and it will go all the way until it hits some sort of terrain. If there's an enemy standing next to that terrain, they will take damage. You can actually hold up to 3 stacks of this. So you can cast 1. If you let it build up, you can cast 3 of them at once and just basically clear an entire wave out. They hit off of minions as well, so it's not just enemy champions. So keep that in mind. The E is called, oh wow, this is a really good team fight. I'm recording this on Sunday, so I'm watching the LCS right now. Watching the 100 Thieves and CLG game. 100 Thieves is giving them a beatdown. Alright, well, we'll go focus back on this. The E is called Ancient Torrent, and this ability causes a rush of water to quickly cover the surrounding areas, the target location that you pick, lowering enemy magic resist, as well as adding X seconds to an already on cooldown abilities. So, for one, it lowers magic resist of all targets that walk into this area. But then if you walk into this area with an ability that's already on cooldown, or that if you add an ability that's already on cooldown, it will add time to that cooldown. It's something called exhaustion. So basically, if someone has a if someone walks in here and they have 10 seconds on a cooldown, it will basically probably reset itself to 12 seconds. So it actually adds a really weird, unique effect to you, where it's like, well, make sure you're not throwing out a bunch of abilities, because if you're like a rise or something like this actually may slow you down a little bit and make you a little more vulnerable. Also, Ancient Torrent will expand massively if casted on River. So, as you see here, the spell range is about 500, which is very big as it is. But it will go up by 300 pixels to 800 when casted inside of the river. So if you cast it on the river, it will expand itself. You can actually, if you cast it on the river next to brush, it will expand about halfway into mid lane, which is crazy to think about. And that also would play off of water walking or river walking, which is the one of the masteries in the inspiration tree, I believe, right now for the runes reforged. So that will actually add a different effect. That will actually allow you to gain movement speed into the river. I didn't really plan it to have it that way since I came up with this a while ago, but just kind of hit me. I was like, that's actually really cool. Now his ultimate's pretty cool. Hyperthermic Convulsion. So Kai hones his ability into a single spell, converting that ability to an ancient element known as True Ice. You can see this is very similar to Heimer's ultimate, where basically he picks the ultimate and then the next ability has a completely different effect. So he actually will change his Q, his W, and his E will all have ice attributes to it instead of water. His Q, the auto attacks will have either, and I don't know which one I wanted to go with, so I just put both of my options on here. It would either have X% bonus magic penetration, which is crazy to think about. You would have that for auto attacks, or it will slow target champions and it will freeze enemy minions, which will be for 2 seconds. You guys can let me know what you guys think. I think the magic penetration would be really fucking overpowered, but fuck it, man. I just want to throw that in there. I think to slow would make more sense, but you guys let me know which one you guys think would be a better idea for that ability. His RW combo. The bubble is now made of True Ice. Same effects, but now freezes first enemy champion hit, slowing all other enemy champions around them, and also dealing magic damage to everybody. So first champion, bop, freezes that champion. Every other champion around that guy, boop, gets slowed. Also dealing damage to everybody too. And you can only use this once, and then this ability goes on cooldown. So keep that in mind. His E, target area now freezes, rooting all targets in location. Targets who walk over the area will be slowed. So now instead of targets losing magic resist and adding seconds to their cooldown, they all get frozen in place, which is a giant root. And then any champions who walk over it afterwards will be slowed, probably by like 40 or 50% something. I don't want to do 80. I think that'd be kind of broken, like Gnosis Wither. But there you have it. Well, for Water Kai, probably a mid laner still. High damage, tons of AoE. He counters a lot of early game mages, mage assassins, I should say, like Katarina, Echo, and LeBlanc. Little fun fact: building Rylaz would add a lot more slowing to his already slow jacked up kit, and he has a lot of high playmaking potential. I would probably start with the W, which is your bubble, just because your auto attacks are not ranged. If you're playing against AP champions in lane, you don't want to have a melee ability as your very first ability. You probably want something with some range on it. Now, hopefully I didn't go too fast, but the big part about this champion, he is very, very fun. I would say he would be a very, very fun champion to play because of everything that you can do with him. He is a one of one. He is the only champion in the game who has this concept about him where he has 16 different abilities, 4 completely different, kits to play with. This isn't like Nidalee or Jace or Elise where you can click your ultimate and look, I get a few, I get a few more abilities. No. You basically pick your kit at the beginning of the game, which would be a really cool effect anyways. And it's like, oh shit, I'm gonna go into this game and I'm gonna play jungle and I'm gonna play fire, or I'm gonna go mid lane and I'm gonna play water this game or air. And you can play them, like I said, you can play them 4 different games in a row and play them differently every single time. I think it's a unique concept that's not in any other champion in the game. On the different side, I think he has a very high learning curve, which could be a good and a bad thing. Having a high learning curve makes the champion really unique and kind of gives it a sort of curiosity to other players because they want to learn how to play that champion. But on the other foot, champions like Lee Sin and Yasuo, who have very high learning curves, get played a lot, and they stink up your solo queue games. You end up reporting him for feeding. Now, I will say the one bad thing about this champion, I think he'd be very, very hard to balance. I think he actually would be almost impossible to balance because if you nerfed one of his kits into the ground, you took away something from the game where it's like, oh, can't play that kit anymore just because it's not strong anymore. It's like, this kit's super strong. I'm gonna play fire every single time if I'm playing support, mid lane, jungle. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna play the fire one. And I think that would be something that would need to be looked at with Riot. But also, I think this concept is almost too much for League of Legends to handle. In a sense, just because of how much this champion can actually do. If you just think about it, a champion that has 16 abilities, like it's mind blowing. And I understand why they haven't come up with the idea, but if they were ever going to do a champion that had 16 abilities, this would be the champion, in my opinion. Yeah, and I think that's it. That was can't believe we got through that, guys. Got through it under an hour. Hopefully you guys like this concept. I have a bunch more concepts that I can throw out to you guys. Like I said, I put 300 likes on this video at the bottom here. If I get 100 likes on it, I will probably actually release the story lore for him. It's pretty long, but his was actually really fun to write, and I think you guys would get a lot more understanding of who Kai is by reading his lore. At least I think so, because the lore that I gave you guys is just, like I said, it's a small snippet of kind of about midway through his storyboard. So you got a little piece of what was going on in his life, but you didn't get the entire concept. So I'm leaving that up to you guys. If you guys want to see that, like, subscribe, comment on the video, please. Let me know what you guys think that I could have done better, or what you guys really, really like about the champion, and I hope to see you guys next time. Have a good day, and if you guys are playing in your placement games this week, please do not play Vayne. I'm tired of seeing Vayne in my placement games. Alright guys, I'll see you later.